Hi, Shana.
Hi, Lily.
How are you?
I'm good. Any day it's sunny, I'm good.
I feel the same. I feel the same. So before we jump in, first of all, thank you for doing this with us. We appreciate your insight and you making the time. But why don't you go ahead and just introduce yourself so our audience knows who you are.
My name is Shana Lory. I'm an executive coach and a workshop facilitator. I've worked in finance for the past several years at big financial institutions and also small private equity firms. When I'm in coach mode, I'm working with individual leaders and whatever issue they target that they want to progress for themselves, that's what we work on. When I'm in facilitator mode, I'm usually working with teams, executive teams at, in this case, most recently, small software companies that have been acquired by a private equity firm and are in, a change management situation with new leadership coming in, new ways of doing business, trying to find a way to marry the existing culture with the private equity culture and help everybody rise to the occasion, find where they fit in the equation, develop a strategy that has buy-in among the whole company, and basically help them set off in a direction that looks like growth and that looks like having a clear mission and that looks like here's the 5-year plan and here's our plan for continuous improvement and here's our plan for just making sure that the people in our culture stay connected and on board with our mission.
Perfect. We need you. We need you to help this moment of uncertainty for a lot of leaders and a lot of teams that are struggling with really coming to a time of a lot of uncertainty and needing to make some big decisions and long-term goals, and it's getting harder. So we're going to get into that. Hopefully you can share some insight of what you think would be supportive right now. But before we get in, just personally, on a personal level, what do you think this moment is about?
Well, I think it's a convulsive moment where we have stretched our resources to the breaking point, and our collective energy as a human race and also the intersection we have with the planet that hosts us has done a collective convulsion, almost like the tension of the pace we've been operating at has caused a breakdown. And so we are all getting to put a pause on business as usual. We are having more time at home than most of us have had in decades. We are having an amazing opportunity to look ourselves in the mirror and see who's there. We're having a chance to really miss and yearn for the people in our lives. And I think that's producing a lot of appreciation for what we no longer have, which is access to touch and to our people, which I think is really, it's hard. What we're going through is hard. We're seeing businesses being classified into essential and non-essential. And, this is coming from a mindset prior to last month where, hey, if you could put a business plan together and you could launch your idea, someone's going to find you essential. Now we're getting really clear on which kinds of work are actually needed to sustain life on Earth and to sustain humanity, and which are maybe not so essential. So there's a wake-up call happening on that level as well. I personally am feeling like the slowed down pace has let me really pressure test what I've set up my life to be. I'm realizing that I haven't had enough time with my husband. I haven't had enough time with my daughter. I haven't had enough time in nature. I'm always planning. I'm always looking ahead, booking travel, thinking through the next workshop I'm going to facilitate, thinking about my dreams and my goals and 10 steps ahead on the chessboard, which comes at a cost to the now moment. And right now I'm thrust intensely into the now moment, and I'm looking at what's there and seeing all my own neuroses or flawed thinking, because I finally have time to catch up with myself and look within. So it's a lot of hard stuff because we're in a massive global transformation, and it is painful to transform because it involves letting go of something that exists, and that is a death, that is a grief, a grieving of a way of life and a way of being and a mindset. And the new thing hasn't crystallized yet. So we're also sitting with a lot of uncertainty. And then there's just actual pain in the world because people are sick and people are dying and people are overworked. So that is a lot. The psychic load right now is massive. But I tend to be an optimist. And so I see this as an incredible opportunity for us to collectively evolve. But it's going to have some painful parts as well.
Yeah, I totally agree. Let's talk about managers, because I think managers and leaders have such an important role right now, and you're dealing and you work with many of them. So I want to get your insight on that. But I just want to share what it's been like for me and my team, and also watching some other leaders of our clients. And it's interesting because as a leader, this is the opportunity to really step up and voice who you are and what you stand for, and really take care of your team members. And I know that I try to do that on a daily basis, and you have to keep yourself motivated too. So as a leader, a manager, you're doing double duty. You're taking care of yourself, and then you're taking care of your team. But for us, it really has called on me and my team and my team leads to turn this moment into fuel. That's the whole series of Fear to Fuel. And, like, how do we create, how do we move forward? How do we inspire not only ourselves, but everybody else around us? And we watch, different companies that we work with. Some managers are really saying that and pushing their teams to think wider and use this moment for innovation. And some are just stopped and frozen and don't want to act and want to halt everything and just take a pause and not move. And their team members are like trying to figure it out on their own. We get some comments on chat through our webinar series. We're like, what do I do when my manager just doesn't want me to create anymore? And I feel really inspired. Or what do I do when I don't have clear guidance from my leads, but I think there's an opportunity here? So, what do you say to managers right now? How do they inspire their team and really use this moment as fuel?
Yeah, I love that question. So I'll use a metaphor for what I see going on as well, which is that this COVID-19 is acting as an X-ray on organizations and companies, businesses, and it's highlighting all the fractures that people have been limping to avoid, or just it's broken but we'll fix it later, or not even unaware that there's a break, but kind of like knowing that things slow down around this point in the process. So like, let's just shine a light or shine an X-ray on this organization, and you can see clearly now where things are not flowing and where things don't work. And I think that a leader who takes this moment to do an inventory of what is working and what is not or has not been working in their company is doing a really smart thing, because as a leader, you have the power and the authority and the voice and the weightiness to say, we're going to make a shift in how we do business. We can see clearly now that this hierarchy doesn't serve us, or that, this approval process holds back people who have a lot of fire in their belly to create, or, I'm sure there's a number of examples that any leader can think about and pinpoint in their own organization that just hasn't been working that well. So that's one thing I would say to leaders is like, take this moment to clean house. And I don't mean clean house, like get rid of people, unless that's what's broken about your company, but just to literally like assess what's working and what's not working. And use this moment where there is an opening and everything is crazy and everything is ungrounded. Use that as a shake-up moment to make the changes that you've been knowing, or maybe not even knowing, that need to be made. It's time to make those changes. another thing I think is important for leaders always, but especially now, is to be really dialed into what your purpose is. Why do you do what you do? What is your business for? In what way are you serving your clients? Is there a way that you're also serving the world? And to be very crisp and on point with what that is. Because if you know what your purpose is, then that's the way that you inspire the people who work for you. You know, we work for people who are leading us to a place we believe in, who can inspire our belief. And so if you know very clearly what the purpose of your work is, then find a way to communicate that, to transmit that to your people so that they can feel connected to a purpose that's bigger than them right now. Especially for those of us that don't like, look, if you work in healthcare right now, you are connected to a purpose that is bigger than you. You are living your purpose every day. You're probably drained, but you come home feeling like you did good, right? But for those of us in less essential businesses, we might be having a crisis right now. Like, why do I bother? Like, what does this garment really mean in the big scheme of things? So get crisp and get fired up about what's meaningful about your work to you, and make sure you're transmitting that to your people. This is also a moment where things that have been shuffled to the side and labeled soft skills need to come front and center and no longer become, you know, that thing we do when we have time. Like, I'll get to know my people when there's downtime. No, you need to have those relationships. You need your people to know that you care, to trust you, to feel that you're invested in them, to feel that you're transparent, that you're communicating, that you're including their point of view and listening to feedback, that you're willing to share your own vulnerabilities and your own doubts. All of those things are what create human relationship. And I think it's clear, certainly now, but it's been becoming more and more clear for me that, you know, business is always about people, right? We make stuff or we provide services, but those are things that people want, or those are services that people want and need. And so if we're building these things with other people, and the thing should never be more important or meaningful than the people that you work with or the people that you serve. So this is a time to really put your heart out there and connect the brain to the heart. Like, a lot of leaders are where they are because they're super smart, ambitious, went to business school, had a fantastic idea, tireless work ethic. Like, they've got all of the gumption and they've got all of the smarts. But until you drop it into the heart and let your people know that this is more than just writing a paycheck and giving an order, but that this is a community that you are entrusted with. As a leader, people are entrusting you to lead that community, because work organizations are communities. And, you know, when you think about them that way, you will behave in a different manner. You will build bonds and you will help others to build bonds. And that's what keeps your employee working when you've had to cut pay. That's what helps you furlough employees and know that they'll be waiting for you on the other end of this crisis and ready to pick it up and start right back. You know, that's what, if you snap one day because you're stressed, your employees, if you've laid a good enough foundation in the relationships, then people will have more patience and tolerance for the struggle that you have as their leader.
Yeah, I mean, I think people are gonna think I made you say all that stuff, but I swear, everyone that's tuning in, we didn't talk about this prior, and everything you said is everything that we practice at FS, and it's incredible. I get emotional every time I see the team pop up on the Zoom, and all of us are on there, and we fill up 3 pages, and I see everyone's faces, and I know everyone personally, and that, like, just to check in on that's real, and that's the culture we've created. Is so gratifying right now. And exactly, yeah, and some really, really painful, hard decisions need to be made, but I know every single person, and I know if they're going to be okay, and I know where they are every single day. And I think that goes a long way. And I think what's interesting is that's also felt on the outside. Sometimes we think that what we do internally as a culture people don't know on the outside. And I think what's interesting right now is that it's seen on the other side. Like you could see a company that's not caring for their people. The consumers are feeling that as well. What, you know, it's like you said, everything is being, the light's being shined on reality. And I'm just reading all these articles about, you know, what leaders are taking care of their people and what leaders are not, and now consumers care about that. And I'm not going to buy your product if I heard that you were mean to the people that work for you. It subtly matters, like compassion and care and protecting our own matters.
Yeah, absolutely. So I had 2 phone calls a couple weeks ago. I have 2 mortgages and with different banks, and the one bank got right back to me, called me by my name, told me that I could temporarily like not pay the mortgage for a few months, that they would follow up with me, that there would be absolutely no penalty to my credit rating. It was very reassuring. I felt valued. The other conversation didn't quite go that way. You know, it was like,
Yeah.
okay, well, if you don't pay, it will affect your credit, and you know, you're going to go back to having 30 years on the mortgage, even though you've paid years worth down on the payments. And, you know, and I don't think it's because those individuals I was speaking to were making different choices. It's because their leadership was informing them, here's what you're empowered to offer to our consumers. This is a company that was empowered to treat me really well, and I will never forget that. Because right now, everybody is raw. So if you are interfacing with a human being and you are not, and you are representing a brand and you don't have compassion, the brand will suffer, just as you said. Because I will remember which brand made me feel valuable versus which brand made me feel trapped and without choice.
Agreed. Let's talk a little bit about creativity, because that's a big part of the community that, you know, is tuning in to listen to us talk today. And, you know, I've always felt that exactly how you shared, you know, we leave very little room to have time to actually be creative or innovative, especially in an industry like, you know, ours, where that should be the priority. Those are the soft skills that, you know, we think are really needed right now. How do you create creativity at a time where, you know, uncertainty? How do you as a manager or a team lead or the owner of a company or the CEO, how do you create time for creativity now, and how do you make that a priority?
I think there's a couple of things a leader can do to help make creativity flourish and make it a priority for their employees right now. My previous incarnation was as an advertising strategy designer. I would come up with strategies. And so I have a bias, which is that creativity, I think, thrives when there's a little bit of a strategic of parameters that have been established, so that you can fulfill a parameter, but you can do it in as creative a way. I think limitations create breakthrough ideas. Whereas if you say, the sky is the limit, that can be a bit of a freeze moment for a creative person. So I think, sort of related to what I said earlier, like being very clear on what your strategy is, and there probably will be a shift in strategy for most people, most businesses right now, right? Like, so for instance, I have a company that a friend of mine gives advice to, and they create the software that powers, food pantry programs, right? And so that's a real in-person type of client. The user of their software is somebody that is face-to-face with hungry people. And we're in a world where you can't be face-to-face. So those leaders sat down and said, what is a way we can still serve our clients who are now having less face-to-face time? So they immediately put together a digital version of the food pantry training program that used to happen in person. So they worked with some food pantries, and they got in with cameras, and they videoed, here's how you operate a food pantry. So it's free. It's something that they just offered out there to people that have been working with them as clients. And that is that's an example of where a circumstance created a new need, and then people had to get creative, like, how do we serve people when we can't be face to face with them, when they have less money nowadays than they used to, when, you know, none of us are wearing pants, we're wearing yoga pants, so pant designers will have to think of ways to maybe make it more comfortable, or so just noting the way that your business is shifting and then adapting the strategic thinking to the new normal, and then briefing your teams from that place. That would be one idea I have. Another is, I think innovation flourishes most when risk taking is explicitly rewarded in the culture. So if you are a company that says, we want innovative thinking, but then you rate and review and issue bonuses to people based on meeting the criteria of yesterday, or, you know, checking certain boxes, or never making a mistake, never getting it wrong, then that is not a culture that rewards innovative thinking, because failure is a natural phase. It's within the innovation cycle. You have to try a lot of things, do poorly at them, optimize, try again, fail again. You know, you need that fast failure cycle in order to perfect this new idea and this new offering. So I think that's something that leaders can do, is find a way to reward failure, you know, failure in the service of innovation, not failure because you didn't show up to work or because you were insubordinate or something like that, but failure because you were trying to break through, you know, the glass ceiling of an idea, and you tried, it didn't work. So how do you reward people for taking those behaviors?
I love that. I mean, internally, we call that standing on the edge of ourselves. So, and a lot of, you know, companies, what's interesting about the creative industry, we work with many leads, as creative as we need to be, there's so little room for failure. Like, exactly like you said, we're looking at what did well for us last year, and let's sell that again because we have some black and white data to prove that it's going to work, and we've convinced ourselves that that's the data that's going to bring us into success in the future, which right now, you know, I think exactly what you're speaking to is just kind of creating a new cycle where experimenting and testing and risk taking is as rewarded as safe bets. Because what are we really betting on? And how do we know we really won at the end? If we put our chips on all the old placeholders from last year, what are we really betting on?
Right, right. I think another thing for the creators themselves, there's so much disruption happening right now, and every system in our world that is being disrupted is, you know, cracks that let the light in, like an opportunity to design new ways of serving others, new ways of bringing beauty into the world, new trends of behavior to capitalize on and to insert yourself into, or to you know, certainly new needs are arising on a daily basis. There's another human need that is exposed. So I think if you're a creative person, just keeping your finger on the pulse right now and watching closely and sort of listening for the themes and the trends, and like, where are we all going with this? And what you hear, and then trusting that your listening is attuned. And I think that's what makes a creative person, is they have that self-trust, that hearing like a quiet voice that needs to then be amplified and shine.
Yeah. I want to talk about the skill to pivot, because I think it's an interesting reality. It's almost like the soft skill that we need to now train everybody in. As a manager, you know, coach to managers and also teams, how do you teach? Because I'm also noticing that within my team, you know, some people are so quick to pivot, boom, boom, they got it, like, you know, 2 instructions and reality happens, and then they're self-starters. And some need a lot more hand-holding in the quick pivoting and actionable like movement.
Yes.
And I think all companies really need quick pivoters right now. And I don't think that's taught or empowered, or we haven't, that soft skill we've talked about. We've talked about agility and pivotal and being able to really quickly adapt. And I don't think we've taught our teams that enough. Can you speak a little to that?
Yeah. What is happening right now is the phases of grief. Is every human being is going through the phases of grief, and they're not necessarily linear, and you never know with yourself how long each stage is going to take before you pop through to the next stage. So I may still be in denial, but you've already moved on to like looking for meaning. And so probably on any given team, you've got people who process rapidly, and then you've got people who process more slowly. Nothing to do with age or intelligence or emotional intelligence. That's just how people are constitutionally. I'm somebody who loves change, so I adjust very quickly. Someone just like me, but not in that way, might take 2 or 3 times as long. So I see and hear how important it is for leaders to get your people moving quickly, but I don't think people can be rushed through the emotional processes that are extremely important in order for them to catch up with themselves and to catch up with what's happening in the world. Because if I think back to how I was, who I was the first 2 weeks after we went into shelter in place mode, I was like a crazy person, you know, and I'm a person whose professional life is about personal growth and self-awareness. So if I'm wacky right now, like people who maybe have less self-awareness or don't do this kind of work on themselves are probably just having wake-up calls that are coming too fast, and they need some digestion time. So I would say support the individual. I think that's most important right now, and make allowances for the process that we're all going through right now. I wouldn't actually rush to pivot. When it's time, I think all of the sort of managerial best practices will still be true, right? Like having a clear vision of where you want to go as a leader, getting buy-in for that, having open discussions with your team where you're listening to dissenting opinions, encouraging healthy debate. I think, building trust, you can demonstrate that through the way you listen to people, through the honesty, through being candid. That's why everybody loves Andrew Cuomo right now, because he's so candid and raw and honest about his feelings and about our prospects and about what's going on right now. That's a good leader practice. Making sure that the people who tend to run away when they're scared, that you're reaching out to them and encouraging them back into the fold, letting people know how they can be helpful, what you need from them, what they bring to the table, how they serve others, giving people that sense of purpose that we talked about earlier, can be a way to connect them to their inner fire so that they can transmute their sadness or their grief into action. But I wouldn't encourage people to bypass the natural falling apart that is happening right now.
Yeah, I agree. Let's look at post, because we're all in it now, and I think that you've spoken a lot about how to deal with this moment. But let's talk about post. How do we kind of proof ourselves, not only prep for post this moment, but also kind of get the team ready in case something like this ever happens again? I know that, even what we're dealing with now, like some teams are using Zoom for the first time. Some teams are, working remotely and practicing that for the first time. Some teams are learning how to collaborate more. Even though we're further than ever before, we're collaborating more than ever before. Some of these practices, I mean, we've been talking about collaborating and cross-disciplinary, practices and forever now, but it seems like now people are starting to really get a taste of it. So what's the advice for Post on really kind of wiring up the most incredible and most powerful team that's going to be ready if this ever happens again, or a version of this happens again?
Yeah. In a way, it's like all businesses are in startup mode because the changes are so profound to how we do business that you are reinventing yourself. Everyone is reinventing themselves, and we don't quite know yet what the future looks like, but there are indicators, right? Like I've seen this meme go around that, like, I guess we really know which meetings were essential and which meetings were not essential because sometimes we just realize that did not need to be a meeting. That could have been an email, and we're clear on that now, right? But so let's not go back to the old way. So the point I'm wanting to make is learn from what we're all having to improvise right now. Really study up and capture what is working about the new way of doing business, and what in these pivots that you're making just to stay on your toes during the crisis, like as we come out of the crisis, what do you want to keep from that? It would just be like, think about it in the same way if you went through a personal crisis, you would look for the lesson, right? In order to make meaning so that it isn't just a tragedy, but so that it's an opportunity to grow. And so I would say, not only be in the driver's seat as the leader of your company right now, but also be taking notes. Have a part of your brain be off to the side going, oh, that experiment worked, or we could do without that, or I really like this technology, let's get more of that, so that you're using this as a laboratory for what comes next. Because I don't know what comes next. That's probably your job to tell me. But you're probably observing every day what works for the now.
Yeah, it's an incredible place to sit in, to just kind of being a team that studies future shifts. We're in the biggest shift we've ever witnessed, and super exciting. But to me, like you said, companies are human beings that have come together to share ideas and create something powerfully as one unit. And I think that's happening more than ever before. So it's exciting, and I think a lot of new leaders are going to be born out of this moment. I think people are getting an opportunity to really step up and lead in a way that they've never before been able to. So I think we're going to have a whole slew of new wide thinking leaders come to the forefront, and we need that. We need that more. We needed that before this moment, and we'll need it post this moment. And I think it's you'll have a lot of work training them to. So I think it's going to be an interesting game of like, how does wide thinking then still fit into a running machine that has deadlines and structure, and not every day or week or month or 6 months, however this long, is going to be this turbulent. We are going to get into a rhythm, and corporations thrive on pattern and structure. And like you said, I also believe, like as a creative, I see it like a frame. If we just create within a frame that has edges, we get to actually really be creative in that space. It's not as fun without any edges or barometers to rub against. So maybe let's wrap this up with just your view on what does that mean? How could we support some of the newer, younger leaders that are going to be coming out of this? What structures, what training do they need? What have you seen work for companies that have some younger emerging leaders who need to be kind of trained to take ownership of certain areas?
Yeah. And I do coach quite a few people in their 20s. And so I do have an ear as to what their struggles and frustrations are. And there's two. One lies within them, and one lies within the leaders who manage them. So the one that's internal to a younger emerging leader is imposter syndrome is a really big struggle of believing this false belief that they already have to know the right thing, and they already have to have the discernment. And we don't have that yet when we don't have experience. And, so when we compare ourselves to an ideal of, well, my boss is so knowledgeable and she always knows how to win people over and she's such a good presenter and I can't do that yet, so I must not be very worthy. And so I'm just going to keep myself silent. Then you're missing the story that you're there to tell, that only your eyes can perceive. So I think helping people know their own strengths is a huge role that an older person, a leader, a coach, anyone who's in a mentoring position can impart to a younger person, is to help them to pinpoint, how are you strong? What do you contribute? Why do we need you in that meeting? Why do I need your voice to speak up? Because this is what you provide, and giving them very concrete ideas about how they can contribute so that they can start to feel worthy. And then the voice that says, don't talk, you don't have enough experience to have a worthwhile opinion, like they can remember instead your voice saying, I really need you to be the one that stands up and calls bullshit on somebody who's, being pompous or who's not listening to others. So that's one thing. The thing that's outside of them is that's within our control, those of us who are older or who manage younger people, is to listen. So I guess these two pieces of advice kind of go hand in hand. It's like, know who your people are, know what their dreams are, know what they are trying to bring forth out of themselves. What is the diamond in the rough that they need help polishing? And so you can be the one who sets them up with a mentor, or who gives them instruction, not on just the things you need them to do, but also on the things that light them on fire and that make them feel passion at work. So kind of develop a nose for passion. And when you can sniff out someone's passion, fan the flames, give them assignments, connect them with other people who share that passion, like say yes to their ideas. Because ultimately that's what's going to lead them down their own path to where they are just alive in their work. And that's the stand I take. That's who I am as a coach and facilitator, is I take a stand for people being alive in their work. And that's something very, very generous that an older person can offer to a younger person, is to help them identify points of aliveness and then to give fuel to that aliveness.
I love that. I hope every company hires you.
Oh, thank you.
And brings you in. I think your skill set is going to be super needed, and I hope companies are wise to invest in their people now. And I hope they learn that investing in their people is investing in their business, and their bottom line is dependent on them. And it's times like this that show us how valuable humans and human relationships are.
Yeah.
If you had a magic wand and you were able to like get into every company and teach them this, or, I know for all of us, Mia, I'm just like, I can't get my hands on product lines right now. I am so eager to like get in there in the creative teams and be like, think that, do this, rethink this, treat color like this, and that's just as a, being in my role, sitting in your role as a, coaching people for years and having expertise. What are you like excited about shifting? Or if you had your chance to like get in there and really change within organizations, what would that be?
This is my pet saying right now, which is high purpose, low ego.
Yeah.
So that's what I want in a colleague, and a collaborator, in a boss, and a team, is that we all are very crisp and clear on what our purpose is, that higher purpose that brings us all into unity and sends us off in a crisp direction. but that it's not about politics and it's not about who gets credit. And everybody gets credit. We all get credit. Share the credit. Who cares? We're on fire with purpose. And that's what I want to see. I want a world where everybody feels connected to meaningful work, and, you know, where there's room for everybody to be appreciated for what they bring to the equation.
Yeah, that's amazing. Thank you, Shana.
Thank you.
Is there any other parting words before we end? And thank you again for your time. We'll leave your info on the end slides. People want to ask you more questions or want to connect with you, they'll have that opportunity. But I loved brainstorming with you and thinking out loud with you.
I feel very energized.
If there's anything you want to say just to end this?
Just what I've been saying at the end of every email: stay safe, stay sane, be supported, seek out support, and seek out that piece of stable ground that you can cling to right now, that just keeps you sane and grounded. You know, the time is coming soon to be reaching for new visions, but I think this week, at least, maybe another couple of weeks, we still want to get our feet under us and know that our security and survival needs are met, and then we can really start rolling up our sleeves and creating tomorrow.
Yeah, I agree. Thank you, Shana. Thank you for your time. Such a pleasure speaking to you.
The pleasure was mine.
Thank you.
Yeah.